Let's talk about Assassin's Quest, the third and final book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. Like I normally do for sequels in a series, I'll give a completely no spoilers review that doesn't spoil any of the trilogy. Just to is it worth reading to this point? Because I know some people want to know that. And then I'll give a more detailed review, which might have light spoilers for books 1 and 2, or some spoilers, but won't spoil this book. So this is the third book in a trilogy about this guy Fitz, a royal bastard called Fitz, who of the Farseer royal family, and there's lots of things going on for them. And the basic review I'd give of it, go back to my Assassin's Apprentice one for the start of the trilogy. But the basic review is there are some continued structural issues that were there in book 2, but particularly around structural repetition, not direct repetition, not profoundly repetitious writing, but just structural repetition, basically things where the author takes a while to resolve a theme or an idea and can't help but kind of repeating it or not quite resolving something. I think it is, again, like book 2, a character-driven book, which means the plot sometimes morphs to change or to suit the characters. I think there's immense strength in it as well. It's a very compelling book. I think that if you like characters and if you like world, this trilogy, I don't know the rest of the realm of the Elderlings. I have some viewers who really like it, but I think I'd say if you like characters and world, this is a series to go for potentially. I thought it was very strong in terms of the magic of the world, the different landscapes and places and people, and the psychological exploration of the characters involved. Now, moving on to no spoilers for this book, some spoilers for the last 2 in the trilogy. I thought this was good. I think basically Hobb has a problem with, because in this so we get on the back again a slightly misleading blurb, which is more or less that Fitz is off to kill Regal, and and he's going off to trade for to kill Regal. That's what the book's about. Again, it's not really representative of what's going on in the book. It's very strange that the blurbs for these books just don't tell you the theme of the book. They try to tell you an event in the book that is part of what's happening, or maybe part of what's happening, but I think Assassin's Apprentice is a really obvious one for that, for instance, because my blurb is all about how Galen is going to try to ruin his life in their training, and though it's relevant for the whole story, of course the crescendo is and a long section is entirely about travel to the Mountain Kingdom and stuff happening there. But here we have Fitz. Basically, he is really bonded with Night Eyes. Everyone thinks he's dead pretty much because he was dead, but transferred to a wolf at the end of the last book, and now he's getting back to normal in life. But there's no normal. He can only go after Regal. He has bits of his family left, as in he has Burrich and he has Chade, but he just wants to go after Regal, and so he goes after Regal, and other stuff happens, and he has to also resolve really what's going on with Verity and his quest for the Elderlings and the confusion and mystery of that. He's got Regal's coterie to deal with, led now by Will, which is of course a really effective reveal in book 2, actually, that Will may not be as openly kind of horrible as Serene and Justin, but he is a much darker, greater power. So as I say, structurally, Hobb can't help repeating stuff. She loves being like, oh, here's a bit like this, and some of it might be intentional. I think some of it is just she's got a bunch of ideas and incidents she wants to get through, and so she gets through them. It's very different in that respect to reading weird stuff and weird repetitions in Wolf, where there's a sort of insane master plan behind them. Here there are on the picaresque journey that you get Fitz on for a chunk of it in the front half. You get a bunch of stuff that sometimes doesn't even seem to matter that much afterwards. There are a few things where he deals with characters as he goes places that are just meant to add to Fitz's character, not really to anything else. They give you a bit of extra knowledge. They're there, but there's no great artistry in how they're being fitted in. And this was the thing I definitely felt in book 2 with Royal Assassin, was that, and so well, I think I had one viewer point out, a fan of the books, I think, saying this was the 90s, long books with basically weak editing. That's what people wanted. They wanted long, floppy, massive books that just thumped when you put them down on the table. They loved Wheel of Time as the most obvious example of that. But it's also where Song of Ice and Fire kicks off at the very end of the decade. So that's the context, but it is an obstacle in Royal Assassin in here that you might have 150 pages that could be condensed to 40. And that's regular issue. The general thing is really about Fitz coming to live with himself and coming to accept himself or not accept himself, criticise himself or love himself, I guess, whatever you want to call it, in the face of these disasters, in the face of a situation with Molly that's very confusing with her off somewhere, picking up new companions, a couple of new companions along the way who are great fun. I thought at least Kettle and Starling, is it? They are good companions, interesting companions. There's a lot of really quite fun atmospheric incidents and places they visit. The visits around the Blue Lake and Tradeford and what's the place by? Is there a different city by Blue Lake? I feel like there is. The place by Blue Lake. The journeys, they go to different places. The travelogue is good. Sometimes repetitious, caveat that, but the world is good, and the new places as Fitz gets. We see an enormous amount of the kind of far north of this continent over the course of the trilogy, and I certainly enjoyed that. Fitz is coming to accept himself, and you have these other characters coming in on this journey. And generally speaking, the character work continues to be very good. Fitz is sometimes frustrating, but I don't feel like I said this in the last one. But where people are like, "Oh, there's terrible things happen to him. Hobb is so cruel to her characters." I think it's just Dickens, isn't it? It's just character melodrama. In character melodrama, if you're aware, familiar with the subgenre, very popular. Some 19th century authors, a bunch of stuff happens and really the actual events don't matter. They matter because they are upsetting, but they're not important in themselves, and understanding that helps make sense of how here and in Royal Assassin, not so much in Assassin's Apprentice, Hobb is very keen to have like big plot twists happen to Fitz. But really, they're there for us to experience Fitz's emotions and the massive interiority of this quite alienated boy who just doesn't really get, and now young man, who doesn't really get that people love him. That's actually really if there's anything frustrating, it's that Fitz constantly struggles, and we see this in our own lives, constantly struggles to know he's loved and that people are doing things for him. And there's perhaps a very slight thing which, because some of these will be picked up, I'm sure, in future books in Realm, but there are bits and pieces to do with the old blood, to do with some bits of the world that you kind of think, I wish, for such a long book, for a 850 page book, I wish you'd spent more time on this or done more with this. I think this is part of the structural bagginess, that you kind of want to see more of particular characters. You may want to go to particular places more, but even with 850 pages, Hobb's issues of taking a long time to work out a particular thing, and I mean, you spend a lot of, basically the last quarter, doing just a few things, more or less. Most of the last quarter is doing just a couple of things, and that shows what Hobb's real interest was to get to the denouement, understandably. but it means you're like, I've spent 600 pages getting here. I feel like they didn't resolve stuff they were doing 100%. And now we're here, and now we're doing ages on this. And that was fine. I enjoyed the denouement. You could tell she was working stuff out a bit, trying to get through to what the solution was, to cut the Gordian knot of the problem. And it basically, she gets away with it. The solution, the conclusion to the trilogy is so enjoyably unusual and oddball and strange that it's fun and satisfying, and has an emotionally complex nature to it. In multiple areas, emotionally complex in many ways. I was left with some questions and confusions I still need to double check in Google. But yeah, I thought it was great. The Fool is great in this as well, obviously. I think the people love the Fool because there is this genuine texturing and filling in of the Fool's character over the course of the trilogy, and most of all here, somewhat in Royal Assassin, most of all here, that I can see why people love it. I'm not as absolutely excited by it, but I do really like the Fool. I like the characters in general. I think there's even interesting perspective offered in limited ways on people like Regal and on the coterie that makes them comprehensible, makes them human, not caricature. You get a bit on Galen actually as well in retrospect, because obviously you're picking up stuff about old characters. Oh yeah, so this is a fact about Galen. You get stuff about Chade, you get stuff about Burrich, and everyone. Lady Patience. Patience also very fun here. Actually, here's one final niggle about the structural stuff. I'm saying about what gets resolved or what doesn't. There's stuff where you see side plots being reported, things coming from afar, and I really liked hearing what's happening where Fitz isn't, particularly over in Buck and stuff. And I kind of just wanted more of that too. Maybe I need to accept that, because this is not a Song of Ice and Fire. Stuff that happens doesn't matter. It's about an interior journey and a set of interior journeys amongst the party being worked out in the exterior. As far as that specific thing goes, interior journeys worked out in the exterior of a wonderful world. This is great. It was not a perfect book. It's very compelling. I will absolutely be reading on to Live Ship Traders next year. I'm going to probably get the books fairly soon, but I'll read them probably at the start of next year. So yeah, that was Assassin's Quest for me. I thought it was really quite good without being all-time great. Tell me what you thought in the comments, and tell me your favourite Realm of the Elderlings books. Till next time.